Hello everyone, and welcome to the new YouTube channel, Prince Dakota's Adventures by author E.H. Allen. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where E.H. Allen, author, reads my book, Prince Dakota Angel and the Multiple Universe Guardians. Although there's a ring there, you can't see it. Here, let me turn this light off. Probably killed it. Never mind. I'll just stick with this. Okay. Anyway, my books are available on Amazon.com. Thanks to all of you who have stuck with me for 5 chapters and probably 9 or 10 episodes. I know it's a lot to listen to somebody talk, but I'll try to keep it interesting. Now, this episode is the first part of Chapter 6, Bombs Are Us. The 5th floor, a short while earlier. Malcolm and several other mugs were on the 5th floor while they tried to figure out how to get up to the attic where the bomb was located. The OZ soldiers guarding the bomb had installed an electromagnetic barrier in the only hallway, which gave access to the attic. The shield went completely around the attic walls. The OZ soldiers grinned as they walked away and headed out a back entrance towards the basement. Lord Valerian had given them instructions to meet him at the bomb shelter after they had activated the shield. The OZ assumed the mugs wouldn't be able to find their way around an EM barrier. It was an asinine assumption. Malcolm and the other mugs with him used every ounce of energy to keep a defeated look on their faces as the OZ walked away. But he secretly already had a plan to defeat a simple shield. They seemed to forget the mugs had access to mounds of advanced technology that would help them defeat an EM barrier. If he had grinned at the soldiers, they may have suspected he had a plan and may not have walked away. Without the OZ around, they wouldn't have to worry about fighting with them while simultaneously trying to disarm an antique alien nuclear bomb. New paragraph. Good. Now that they're gone, we can take out this shield, Malcolm said, unable to keep his giddiness hidden at so easily outsmarting a bunch of extraterrestrial vampires. Another new recruit on his first mission wasn't so sure this op would be easy and suspected the OZ left them a little surprised. New paragraph. Malcolm, those soldiers seemed a bit too sure of themselves as they walked away. I think they may have left a mammary gland trap. Brick, 12, said calmly as he stood with his comrades in front of the shimmering barrier. Most up-to-date EM barriers were nearly invisible until something made contact with them. The fact that this one was shimmering told Malcolm and the others that it was of low quality. He suspected the OZ were simply trying to slow the mugs down to give the bomb time to go off. Bryce had sent them a text telling them how much time remained until detonation. 4 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. A few mugs stifled giggles at Brick's incorrect comments concerning hidden traps. New paragraph. I realized that, Brick. Of course they left a trap for us. And they're called booby traps, not mammary gland traps. Where'd you come up with that? Malcolm asked as he just looked at Brick while the others snickered again. My mom hates it when my brother Axel constantly says boobies in reference to girls he goes to school with. She says mammary glands is the proper term, Brick said as he shrugged. Normally I'd agree with you, but in this case, when referring to hidden traps, you use booby. And we'll worry later about how the term came into use. But for now, Malcolm paused as he let Brick finish. I know, let's focus on the bomb and shield, Brick said as he stood ready with his fairly short 16-inch energy baton. Until he received further promotions, his baton would be pretty short. He was in awe of the higher-ranking mugs and their long, ornate batons. He was skinny and used to walk with a small limp due to a birth defect and was short for his age. But now that he was a mug, all those issues had been cured, and he was more perfect than he could imagine. He was still slim, but not skin and bones. And with his regular training, his abs and other muscles were starting to fill out. He realized he was doing something right when he and his family noticed girls and boys checking him out when they were in public. And he also no longer went to public school since he'd become a mug. He had opted to attend the Mug Academy since it was free, which his hardworking and severe financial debt parents loved. And he had a lot of friends, unlike when he was in regular school and no one ever talked to him. He loved to read fantasy books, and after the U.S. military paid his family a visit in their small southern Indiana town to inform them he'd been selected as a mug candidate, his parents told him it was a no-brainer to accept, especially since it was a well-paid gig. Everyone, I'm going to take a quick break, then I'll continue. Welcome back. New paragraph. Getting to travel all over the multiverse was a dream come true, and Brick was over the moon. He just had to make sure he didn't screw up his first mission in the field. He'd shined during testing and still had a few more to finish. And he was also being assessed on his first mission by Randy Taylor. Brick was even more amused to learn his older brother and sister had counterparts from two other universes who were also candidates. And he was also amused he would have seniority over them. But Prince Dakota also warned Brick he'd have to continue training to stay ahead of his other universe siblings or risk getting left behind if he slacked off. He reminded him just because he was chosen first didn't mean he'd automatically stay ahead of them. Even Brick's dad, Mike, knew that'd be the case once informed of the other universe issue. Mike seemed to have a very good intuition about stuff like that. New paragraph. I wonder how the other mugs in New York City and Washington, D.C. are doing. How'd the vamps even smuggle the bombs there? Lauren Ingalls asked, as Malcolm put his plan into motion. She was from the late 1800s and had counterparts in other universes with the name Laura. She was ecstatic to be chosen as a mug, and at first, all the advanced technology at their disposal overwhelmed her, but now it was old news, and she thought nothing of it. She was 12 years old, but when she was really little, she never could have imagined there were other universes with advanced civilizations and technology. She enjoyed seeing the astonished looks on the faces of kids and young adults from primitive civilizations the first time they saw Earth from space or any advanced tech. New paragraph. They're probably fine. They're probably fine, and probably very carefully. I'm guessing the OZ got the bomb parts to the States by transporting them in small sections to avoid suspicion. And they have knowledge of advanced tech, so they knew how to hide a small amount of radioactive material from inspectors, Malcolm said, as he suddenly heard the telltale sign of a QWD forming. He was certain it was Prince Dakota coming to check in on them, check in on him and the others, and that they'd already captured the OZ and evacuated the prisoners from the dungeon. Ooh, I hear an ERB forming, Eleven said. She was 13 and newly promoted, but she was smart and was blazing a trail through the tests, ranks, and stages. Randy would also be assessing her abilities, as well as Brick's, whose parents named him that because they thought it would make him a cool kid. They were wrong. Brick was a typical, quirky nerd kid who had no friends, until he became a mug. Now he regularly competed with other mug nerds to see who could complete tests the fastest and most accurate. Prince Dakota also reminded them finishing first wasn't always the goal, and that you could miss something critical if you rushed through a test. You may pass, but you may not learn what you were supposed to. They all glanced the direction where Eleven was looking. She seemed to have remarkable superhuman senses, although not better than Dakota, but she was pretty close. She was one of the few mugs that had limited superhuman powers before they became guardians. Her story was complicated, and no one except Dakota and a few others really understood it. New paragraph. No one at first understood why she was named 11 until they found out she once lived in a classified secret government facility in Indiana and was the subject of experiments. She'd been the 11th subject of those experiments. Once the U.S. president and her universe found out she was a mug candidate, he immediately secured her release from government prodding. She'd escaped to a small nearby town and was being hidden by the locals while the evil government scientists with guns continued to chase her. The president put a stop to the chasing and worked out a deal with Dakota. With the mugs having access to so much advanced technology, the government realized it was a good idea to release 11 instead of getting the ire of a superpowered kid army. The president realized the mugs would stop at nothing to liberate her from the clutches of experimenting evil scientists. A few people nicknamed her Ellie, short for 11, and some called her Elle. She wanted a real name, and everyone was suggesting ideas. Once she decided on one, Dakota was going to assist her with the legal issues with the government and changing it and getting her a social security number. She hadn't been given one at birth to keep her existence secret from the public record. They'd also have to come up with a backstory for her suddenly appearing on record. Malcolm had an idea and was going to run it by Dakota later, after this latest mission was complete. New paragraph. Yeah, it's probably His Majesty coming to check up on us, Malcolm said with rolled eyes, as the wormhole door suddenly formed in the side of a nearby stone wall. It quickly stabilized, and then Prince Dakota, Kalis, and Mr. Data came waltzing through the shimmering bluish-white event horizon. 11 was in awe of her superhuman leader and hated that mugs weren't allowed to date each other, but she also understood why. Plus, she had a boy she was seeing back in her universe. That boy and a few of his friends had been allowed to know the secret of the mug's existence. But they had been sworn to secrecy by the feds and told they'd pay dearly if they leaked a word of 11's job as a mug. So far, they kept their mouths shut, at risk of getting the ire of a superhuman even more powerful than 11 and all of the monstrous creatures they'd had to deal with the last couple of years. New paragraph. Dakota simply laughed when told what 11 and her buddies had been through, thinking those upside down monsters were the most powerful things that existed. He put them at ease and reminded them those monsters were no longer a threat with the mugs involved. Unfortunately, there were other universes where that wasn't the case. And she was also excited to know all of her buddies had counterparts from other universes that were mug candidates, and she couldn't wait to meet them, especially the Mick Wheeler counterpart, and see the looks on their faces when Dakota performed some of his superhuman tricks. 11 thought she was special until she met him. He could do things she could only dream about, but being a mug also increased the control she had over her superhuman powers. He knew she would shine as a guardian. New paragraph. Fancy meeting you here, sir, Randy said with a wry smirk as Prince Dakota and the others walked up. Dakota wasn't able to keep a wry half grin off his face at Randy's chipper attitude, even with the dire situation of a nuclear bomb going off in 4 minutes. And his wit was second to none, even better than Malcolm most days. But Dakota dared not tell Malcolm that. The gifted nerd would go out of his way to upstage Randy in the wit department. New paragraph. Likewise. Now, how about we take care of the nuclear bomb in the attic, and then we can take care of other things. I'm not even going to ask if you have a plan, because it'd be a redundant question, Prince Dakota said, as he was unable to avoid smirking at Malcolm, who was smirking back. Brick was amazed how these two seasoned mugs could remain so calm under such dire circumstances. He guessed they'd been through some rough times together, and he was itching to hear the story of their first meeting. He was sure it'd be fascinating. Everyone, I'm going to take another quick break, and then I will continue. Hello, and welcome back. New paragraph. I do. A TDM, Malcolm said as his smirk widened into a slight wry grin. He thoroughly enjoyed the mass of advanced tech at his disposal. Prince Dakota wasn't surprised at the decision, and it was an obvious no-brainer to most of them. What's a TDM? Booker asked, with a clueless look on his face. He was African-American, 13, and from Chicago of the year AD 2019. He was quickly learning how to be a good mug, but could be clueless sometimes, which drove his fraternal twin sister nuts most days. He had a bad habit of neglecting his mug classroom studies and not properly reading material about how to use the advanced tech. It was paramount that all the mugs knew how to use the powerful technology at their disposal. Misusing it could prove disastrous for soldiers on a mission. Prince Dakota thought he'd be at his wit's end with Dickie, who was shining as a mug, and actually took reading the material seriously. But Booker's laziness was getting on Dakota's last nerve, and it was everything he could do to keep from planting his foot in the boy's ass all the way up to his chest. Dakota just glared at Booker as 11 quickly answered without even giving Malcolm a chance to talk. But Malcolm thought she was cute, so he wasn't even offended. A TDN was one of the most basic of mug abilities, one Booker should know. New paragraph. Booker's sister, Nyla, could see His Majesty glaring at him out of the corner of her eyes. Booker was doing very well in his combat calisthenics, but kept screwing up when it came to using his energy baton properly. He accidentally blew up an entire star system during a training simulation in a holodeck room. Riker wasn't happy and was struggling not to wring his neck. Everyone now realized Dickie wasn't even close when it came to being a goofy mug, but he had a pass since he'd been diagnosed with a TBI, which is a traumatic brain injury. Booker had no such health issues, and still shined in the goofiness department. But Prince Dakota was certain they'd be able to get him on the right track. It'd just take a few screw-ups before it happened. So, Booker wouldn't be allowed on any missions without supervision until he passed all tests concerning the use of advanced tech. Dakota didn't have time for an inhabited star system to get blown up because a mug misused the advanced tech. New paragraph. Booker, TDM means time distortion mode. You should know that. It's the most basic component of our training, 11 said with obvious attitude. She glared at him while she stood at near perfect attention with her baton in her left hand. She took her training and acceptance into the mug order very seriously and had a look that could cut glass. She didn't have time for goofballs. Prince Dakota was the only one who had a more fearsome look than she did, or any other mug. He'd learned a lot from the UA beings, including how to intimidate bad guys or disruptive mugs. Kalis and Mr. Data were also staring at Booker, fascinated at how clueless the boy could be. New paragraph. Oh, yeah, I know. I was just testing y'all, Booker said nonchalantly as he waved a dismissive hand in the air. Nyla just closed her eyes briefly and cringed because she knew what was about to come next. 11 didn't say another word because she knew that His Majesty was about to rip Booker a new one. Booker, you ain't testing Jack Diddley squat. Now, I'm sure you remember I'm a telepath and can sense emotions and can tell when someone is full of it. But we'll discuss this later. Time is of the essence. We need to time distort, and take care of these bombs. Now, do you remember how to engage TD mode? Prince Dakota asked as he glared at Booker, who visually gulped, had his superhuman boss glaring daggers at him. He knew he better get the answer correct, or Dakota would have his way with him. Another newer but higher-ranking mug just below Medea, 14, was also looking at Booker like he'd lost his mind. Her name was Raven, also 14, and an adult counterpart of hers from another universe was his mother. She feared her firstborn son might be a nitwit, but now that she knew the possible future, she might be able to put her foot down before any of her future children went sideways as far as learning was concerned. She was also happy to learn her best friend, Chelsea, had a Mer counterpart that was a mug candidate. Her only concern was that her friend could also be a bit of a nitwit and would most likely get on Prince Dakota's nerves, more so than Booker. Only time would tell. New paragraph. Yeah, I think I can figure it out, Booker stuttered with semi-wide eyes as he nervously nodded his understanding of the issue. New paragraph. You better. I ain't got time for slackers, and no, I'll be watching you. You screw up a mission, and my foot will be so far up your butt, if a doctor looked in your mouth, he'll see my toes in the back of your throat. You follow me? Prince Dakota asked as he stared hard at Booker, who swallowed visibly again. He enjoyed being selected as a guardian and being able to travel all over different universes, so he had no desire to screw up so bad he got kicked out. 11 and a few others stifled giggles at the toes comment. New paragraph. I do, sir, Booker said honestly and respectfully as he could. Booker said as honestly and respectfully as he could. He also had no desire to have a superhuman's toes at the back of his throat via up his rear end. That's good. Okay, y'all. We go TDM 1H to 1S on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark! Prince Dakota ordered. They all simultaneously activated time distortion mode. 1 hour to 1 second. So an hour for them would be 1 second outside the fields. There was a brief flash of bright white light, and then they glanced up and gasped lightly as they suddenly realized what the shield barrier was doing now that they were time distorted. New paragraph. Whoa! Now that's different, Booker said as he stared at the now fluctuating shield barrier. Since time was moving super slow outside the perimeter of the distortion fields, the shield appeared to be intermittently scrolling from left to right with large oval-shaped holes as it moved. The holes were large enough for them to easily slip through while the sparkling shield moved at 2 miles an hour instead of dozens of times per second. Randy noticed Prince Dakota glancing around as though he was searching for something or someone. New paragraph. Looking for something, Your Majesty? Randy asked, already knowing what the possible answer was. Everyone, that is the end of part 1. I will start with part 2 later on, but for now, thank you and have a good day.